Good morning. The time is 10 a.m. I call to order the November 7th, 2019 meeting of the Contractor States License Board's Licensing Committee. I'm David Diaz, the committee's chair. Only board members who are members of the committee may sit at the table. Other board members who are in attendance must observe from the audience. If a quorum of the board is present, those members who are observing cannot participate in the discussion. Elizabeth Robinson, can you please call roll and establish a quorum?
David Diaz.
Here.
Kevin Albanese.
Here.
Augie Beltran.
Here.
David De La Torre.
Here.
Marlo Richardson absent. A quorum has been established.
Thank you. Next, I would like everyone at the table to introduce themselves. I'll start off with Mr. Rogers. Augie Beltran.
Augie Beltran, board member.
Tanya Corcoran, Chief Deputy Registrar.
Christy Shields, counsel for the board.
Elizabeth Robinson, License Management.
Justin Paddock, Licensing Chief.
Mike Jemnetsky, Legislation.
David De La Torre, board member.
Kevin Albanese, board member.
David Foe, registrar.
Thank you. And should we do the audience? No,
You don't have to. I mean, it's voluntary if they want to introduce themselves, but they're not required to.
Okay, then we'll just go. Sounds good to me. Next is agenda item B, our public comment section. This is the same thing we read every meeting. So if you've been here, you've heard it before. The committee values input from the public as part of its consumer protection mission and welcomes public comment on items not on today's agenda at this time. There are a few other rules that apply. First, California law prohibits committee members from discussing any matter brought up during public comment that is not on today's agenda. Also, we are not allowed to act on any item not on the agenda. If you want the committee to discuss a topic not on the agenda, you can ask us to consider placing that issue on the agenda in a future meeting. If you have if you have an application, complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the board, we ask you that you not discuss the details of your case or pending complaint. That's because the board members may be the judges and by law are not permitted to receive evidence or information that is not part of the administrative record in this case. This will not be the public's only opportunity to comment during today's meeting. If your comments don't involve an item on the agenda, this is your opportunity to make them. If your comments are related to a specific agenda item, you may want to wait until the item comes up for discussion, or you can make your comments now if you prefer. To allow the committee sufficient time to conduct its scheduled business, we will be limiting public comment to 3 minutes per individual. At this time, are there any members of the public who wish to address the committee to offer an agenda item in a future meeting? Seeing none. Do any committee members have any item they would like to place on a future meeting agenda? No, I guess not. Okay, so hearing none, I guess we're going to move on to the next thing. Item C, licensing program update. Internal policy procedure changes related to the licensing applicant review. Recently, the executive office and the licensing division examined several policies and procedures the exam applicant unit and experience verification unit use in their day-to-day activities. After the review, several changes were put in place aimed at reducing processing times and reducing workload. These changes will provide added benefit to applicants. Justin will provide a brief summary on these changes. Justin?
Thank you so much. The executive office and the license management are essentially going unit by unit through the licensing division to see if there's ways that we can speed up the process, get rid of duplicative things, etc. The 2 units I'll be talking about today is just where we've started our effort. It's the exam applications unit and the experience verification unit. Just by way of background, the application examinations unit is typically where your application is going to go if you're a first-time contractor. So an original application, you're coming through the gate for the first time. Our experience verification unit actually occurs on the back end of the application process. So we bookended it. On the back end, after your application has posted, 3% of our cases are essentially pulled for audit to review, to make sure that their experience is correct. That's per statute. And for other internal purposes, for example, if there was an enforcement case in certain situations, those cases are also pulled to examine their experience. And our experience verification unit works with the applicant and whoever's certifying their experience to get further evidence to see if they meet the 4 years experience in the last 10, to either be a journey person, supervising employee, contractor, et cetera. So those are the 2 units that we started on. With the application exams unit, we found that we wanted to essentially implement a verification form so that we could return fewer applications. So whenever an application comes in where there's a minor issue, you wrote your business name down wrong, and it's a little bit different from what's actually registered on the Secretary of State's website. You may have inappropriately checked a box. What we do is we're going to have the individuals in our unit, they're doing it now, contact you if there's just 1 or 2 minor problems with your application, have a phone conversation with you, and during that phone conversation, fill out a verification form and take contemporaneous notes of what you've stated, and then we make those corrections on your application. Essentially, what this is trying to improve is instead of putting everything back in the mail and telling you to go fix it, if we've got just a few problems, we'd rather get you across the finish line. So we're hoping that this is going to reduce our rejection numbers that we'll be reporting to you quarterly, and we also hope, in a certain respect, that this is going to reduce our void numbers. Just quickly, I'll jump to the experience verification unit. There, what we're working on is there's a lot of situations where there's not a lot of paperwork for an employee. And that can be for various reasons that I'll let you just draw your own conclusions on. But certain employees, there's not a lot of paperwork to prove up. This guy worked for me for the last 6 years. He's he knows what he's doing. He's a journeyman. He's fine. In those situations, if there's no issue with the licensee, so that licensee who's certifying the experience has been in good standing, we're actually going to have them fill out an affidavit of sorts, and we're going to rely upon that in many instances. So that's a brief summary of what we're doing. We're going to keep going through our units to see if there's other opportunities where we can sort of minimize rejection when possible without actually doing good analysis on the applicant. Happy to answer any questions.
This is an informational item, so we don't need to take any action. Do committee members have any comments? Seeing none. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none. Item D, update and discussion regarding cost-benefit analysis to outsource CSLB exam administration. Committee members, if you turn to page 77, I will briefly discuss staff's recent efforts to finalize a cost-benefit analysis for outsourcing CSLB's exam administration unit. You may recall at our last meeting, we authorized staff to postpone finalizing their cost-benefit analysis report until the December meeting, because of the Department of Consumer Affairs was negotiating new items with their exam administrator, PSI exams. As DCA's exam proctor, we need to know what PSI exam costs are so they can compare to the CSLB's examination costs. We anticipate having sufficient cost comparison data for staff to make a recommendation to the full board at the December 12 meeting. I'll ask Justin to briefly summarize what the staff recently done and what we can expect in December. Justin?
I'll be very brief. We've met with PSI exams. We've met with DCA staff. We're certainly very close. We're going to be finalizing our numbers, and we feel that we'll have a good projection for you come December 12th for the meeting. And we'll also have a staff recommendation as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Again, this was an informational item. Do we have any board members with questions or comments? Anybody from the public, questions or comments? Okay. Let's see. Item E, review and discussion of potential need to amend the scope of hazardous substance removal certification. Committee members, please turn to page 81. In implementing strategic plan licensing item 1.2, to review licensing classification determinations for consistency, staff identified an issue with hazardous substance removal certification. Justin, will you provide us a briefing on the matter and identify the next steps, please?
Certainly. Just by way of background, if you're going to perform hazardous removal work in the state of California, you would as a contractor, which would be the removal, or if you're going to remove or install an underground storage tank, you need this hazardous certification from us. Laws surrounding that certification really haven't substantively changed since about 1993. So as we were going through with our strategic plan objective, we just identified some issues, and this one's ready to get some updates. Based on that, I'll give you just a couple very brief examples. Remediation by law, the way the law is actually written requires you to dig into the earth. There's a lot of remediation work where that's not necessarily the case. You could be remediating something in an existing building. There could be a water issue. There could even be an air issue for some of our contractors. That will certainly need to be updated. In addition to that, by way of how our regulation works at the moment, C21s who actually are doing removal can't get the certification. So I think we need to also look at that. With that, I think David had a few comments with regards to some information he's received from industry.
Yes, thank you, Justin. I've received a number of calls from industry leaders regarding the wildfire debris removal and the concerns that they have. And the concerns are that we have contractors performing this debris removal, digging into the earth, and there is no requirement that they be certified, and that this material contains asbestos, toxins, chemicals, lots of different reasons why it would be helpful to have the certification apply to these projects. As it stands today, there's no certification requirement unless they're removing underground storage tanks or the project is listed by the Department of Toxic Substance Control, or it's a Superfund site. So what I've told them, appreciate this being on the agenda for consideration, and we'll take a look at it and see if the statute would need to be amended to provide for a requirement that in certain situations that a certification would be necessary to protect the worker and the public. Thank you.
So just to wrap up the item, the purpose of bringing it to the committee today is to just let the committee know staff has identified a serious issue that needs to be addressed. This is going to be a bit of a sticky issue. We're going to have to work with a lot of our sister state agencies, which I plan to start momentarily in the coming weeks. That's going to be Department of Industrial Relations, Department of Toxic Substances Control, State Water Resources Control Board. It will take some effort, but I just wanted to make committee aware. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, is there any questions from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
more of a comment. I'm fully in support of a highly trained, highly qualified workforce, especially when it comes to handling contaminants. I guess my question would be, what would be the definition of demolition? Because sometimes it's in concert. We do, demolitions in concert with abatement or remediation. So I think we need to identify what demolition is.
If I may, at the moment, that's a bit of a gray area. And you've highlighted one question, and I think between Mike and I, we've got quite a few, and that's certainly near the top of the list. Again, especially when you're getting to an individual project and you look at that specific project and look at our law, it's incredibly tricky. I can't give you a straightforward answer on any given project, which is why I think this is just well past overdue.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay, moving on to the next item. Item F, review and discussion regarding feasibility of creating a CSLB license applicant satisfaction, I guess is the right word, survey. Okay. Committee members, please turn to page 85. As many of you are aware, CSLB surveys individuals who file a complaint with the board after the complaint process is concluded. During our last board meeting in Chico, a question was asked about whether any such survey is done with licensed applicants, which it's not. Based on that comment, staff put together a concept for an applicant survey that could be completed by the applicants on the internet via a link sent to their email. Staff prepared several potential questions that would appreciate any comments and additions from the committee. I guess there's 8 or 10 of them on there. Do the committee members have any comments? No, seeing none. Does the public have any comments? Would anybody on the committee make a motion? For example, the committee could move to direct staff to present the survey to the full board for consideration and adoption.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, does the board members have any comments on the motion? Okay, does the public have any comments on the motion? Seeing none, Elizabeth, can you take roll?
David Diaz.
Yes.
Kevin Albanese.
Yes.
Augie Beltran.
Aye.
David De La Torre.
Aye.
Marlo Richardson absent. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Item G, update, discussion, and possible action on to amend the 2019 to 2021 licensing and testing strategic plan updates. Next, agenda item G, a review and discuss, I just said that. Can you see the update, or you can see the updates on 89 in your meeting packet. Justin, can you give an update on item 1.7 related to developing online contractors license application?
Certainly. And actually, what I'll first say is on item 1.12, there's actually an error on the update, so I apologize to the committee. That work that I remarked has not yet begun. It's actually ongoing. We're already doing surveys and reaching out to agencies and associations. So my apologies for that inadvertent miscommunication. Moving to item 1.7, based on discussions that we've had with the board and this committee, we're just shifting priorities. Our first focus is going to be the online renewal for sole owners. Our project rollout date for that is going to be February of next year. Because of that, the fact that we're shifting priorities, we're just moving the applicants to right after we finish that effort. So all we're asking for is that we move the deadline for the applicant going online to July of 2020, which is our targeted date. Happy to answer any questions.
Do any board members have any questions or comments? Is there any public comment? Seeing none. Can I get a motion and a second?
Second.
Recommend that the board amend the licensing 2019 to 2021 strategic plan objective 1.7 target date to July 2020.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any board members have any comments? Does the public have any comment? Elizabeth, can you take roll, please?
David Diaz.
Yes.
Kevin Albanese.
Yes.
Augie Beltran.
Aye.
David De La Torre.
Aye.
Marlo Richardson absent. Motion passes.
Okay, that's all the committee's business for the day. Can I get a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any public comment on that one? No? Elizabeth, can you take roll?
David Diaz.
Yes.
Kevin Albanese.
Yes.
Augie Beltran.
Aye.
David De La Torre.
Aye.
Marlo Richardson absent. Passes.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Next meeting will start in 5 minutes.